I guess I should change my background. All right, we are recording. Welcome to the OAC by Rooster General Contractors. I don't have a better intro than that today, John.
That's all right.
So today we're going to talk about multifamily and all the wonderfulness that comes with multifamily. So, you all right? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I was turning the volume up.
Oh, okay. So what would you say the best, not that that'd be the best. So let's talk about the process of acquiring and purchasing a multifamily unit complex, right? So there's multiple different classes, A through D, I believe. And obviously your class A properties are like the primo. They're fully leased out. There's nothing wrong with them. But there's also a huge hot market for like your C and D type class properties. I'm gonna check myself on this just to make sure. But going into a property, looking to flip it, what are the main key points that if you yourself are looking at it, what's your biggest cost going into those properties? Is it turning over each room, or is it having to redo the boiler room?
Yeah, well, so it's the same when you're looking at a property as an investment. It's the same. The first items are the same all around. Is there anything structurally that is wrong with the building, or do you have any like underground sewer issues, or any major mechanical issues? Because those are going to be huge drivers on costs, which could impact your ROI. So those are going to be the things that are going to kill the project right out the gate, is if people get into it and there's issues with that, or with the fire suppression. That can get very expensive if you got to do anything in the riser room or anything updating your sprinkler lines themselves. So that can be a big issue. You're really looking for properties that need cosmetic work done to them, where they just need to be brought up to date, or they need to be just kind of refurbished a little bit to make them fresh. If you got to replace a roof, that's no big deal either. Or repair a roof, at least, that's no big deal. And even some there are structural issues you can encounter that are not going to break the bank. The issue that investors deal with frequently is they don't have a good partner who is able to help them identify what's a deal breaker and what's not, or how much to do an accurate appraisal of the work needed on the property. That's definitely something that we offer people, not just for multifamily, but also for single family and commercial properties. And, we do this with different people fairly frequently, where we go in and we look at a property and we figure out what needs to be done. Very rarely do we know anything about our clients' finances or what their needs are or anything like that. We just know that they're thinking about getting a property. I don't even know what the offer is. I don't know any of that stuff. I just go see what is its value as is and how much work needs to be done and what's the value of that. So that's actually finding yourself a good partner who's able to help you out with those things. That's something any investor needs to do.
What is your background and experience with multifamily? Like, have you gone in and repainted, or have you built stuff from the ground up for multifamily?
Both. So my first experience with multifamily was as a drywaller, and that was just like month after month, year after year of hanging on wood framed multifamily buildings. Yeah, I've done it. I've done several apartment complexes, retirement facilities, assisted living facilities, hotels. Even I know that's a different classification than multifamily, but the projects themselves uh, tend to be fairly similar from as far as like means and methods go. They're very similar. Maybe project sequencing and what the incentive on the job is different between an apartment complex and a hotel, but nuts and bolts, it's the same. So I've done all that as a tradesman. I have been a project manager over several multifamily projects, new projects and remodels, primarily remodels. And that ranges everywhere from townhomes, like a collection of like 10 townhomes. I've done some smaller like quadplexes, duplexes. Duplexes aren't considered multifamily in Texas, but in other places, a duplex is considered multifamily and is held to those requirements. And then I've also worked on apartment complexes that had upwards of 500 doors. Some of them as many as, gosh, I did one property that was a remodel. It was several remodels going on simultaneously at one property. And we basically, like the company I was working for at the time, the owner had been working on that property himself, or one of his employees had been working on that property for like 5+ years, just like an insane amount of time. And it was a property built in 8 different phases, had probably in the ballpark of 40 or more buildings, probably more, but buildings themselves with an assortment of types. There were condos, penthouses, townhomes, and traditional apartments, all blended in one property. There was retail on the property as well. So yeah, I've worked with, think of any of the major multifamily management groups. If you can think of them without naming names on the podcast, if you can think of the top 5, I've worked with 3 of them, you know.
Yeah.
So extensive multifamily experience.
What's it like working in an unoccupied space?
Different than in a home situation. A lot of things are similar. People are people. So people are concerned with what's your timeline, what's your cleanliness, you know, how do you treat them when you are there, all of that good stuff. Different than someone who owns the property is when you're inside of apartments or assisted living facilities doing an occupied remodel, the people that are inside the space that you are remodeling, unless it's a common area, if you're working on a unit or several units, the people that occupy those units are not your client. They don't own the property. They're not paying you. They didn't call you for the work or anything like that. The property manager did.
Yeah.
Right? The property manager is my client. They pay me. They sign the contract, right? That being said, the property manager and the tenant have different things that they want out of it. You know, the property manager aspires to a certain level of quality, but the level of quality they desire is beholden to the market and demographic that they are renting to. So like there's a property in Irving that someone might as well have set on fire. that we were remodeling. It was a really bad property. It was really bad. Someone got shot and died on the property while we were working. The police came, shut down the job site, wouldn't let any of the men leave until everyone had been interrogated. Absolutely nuts. So this property was a dumpster fire. People get murdered there. Pretty bad place. So we're working on that place, and they're giving us feedback that they're like, "Hey, your guys are too slow. They're too expensive. Yada yada." And we ran through a number of superintendents and project managers on that property, because people would get frustrated with the property managers and with the tenants, and uh, say things they shouldn't have said. And then the property manager would ask us to remove that person, and we'd have to send someone new out. And eventually we ran out of people to send over there, so I went myself. Chatted with the guy that we had on site. He was a good guy, but chatted with the guy we had on site and figured out that the reason why things weren't working is we had high-end guys doing high-end work on a property that half the tenants were probably getting evicted because they weren't paying rent. So this was a property that was super cash poor, super economically depressed area. And we were going in there and we were treating that job like it was anywhere else, just doing the highest level of work. And I will go aside to say that for me personally, it doesn't matter if I'm working for Bill Gates or if I am working for someone inside of Section 8 housing. I'm going to treat you with the same care and provide the same quality of work. And I'm not going to uh, beat anyone up over it. But not everyone is like that. And so, we had to go in and we had to kind of like tell our guys, like, quit doing such a good job and hurry up, which is like the craziest thing you could ever say to someone.
Yeah.
But those are some of the differences. Is like the tenant is going to, more often than not, the tenant is going to be far more demanding than the property manager. The property manager wants you in and out and they don't want it to cost anything. And the tenant wants you to take good care of their home.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Usually, I'm actually, I would see that you'd probably get more trouble or more flack from tenants than you would the project owner, because they're treating it more as a business.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of transactional instead of your actual home living domicile that somebody's coming into, but you really don't have any control over that. So,
Oh, no. And it's a funny perspective. Not everyone's the same, but as far as tenants go, the ones that are more emotional or unreasonable, uh, those are the ones that tend to view the contractor as an extension of the property manager. They associate you with the owner, which they should associate you with the owner because that's who you're hired by, but they should not equate you with the owner. So, like, yeah, the number of situations I've ran into are crazy, right? I had a guy pull a gun on me one time. I was trying to, yeah, he had a sprinkler line burst in his apartment and flood it. And I showed up.
hold on, somebody's dog's walking around out front.
Oh, no, you're good, man.
That dog is probably long gone. With all the rain, probably got out because it was scared of the thunder.
Yeah.
So now my dogs are.
Yeah. So I guess the question with multifamily and working in occupied spaces is that you should be, as a contractor, you should be doing the absolute most for any client. And you should be holding your men to that same standard, men or women to that same standard. The thing that would change in multifamily is like you are serving two different people with two different positions in regard to the work being done. And so you, I think, just have to be a little bit more political from a customer service standpoint, because you cannot disregard the tenant because they are the person that lives there. It is their space that you are working in. But also they don't own the property and they're not paying you. So while, you need to be mindful of the people you're serving. But at the end of the day, that's not a shot caller. If the tenant asks you to do something, you have to direct them to the property manager and stuff. So it's a weird chain of command.
So what kind of work would you be doing in an occupied space like a multifamily? I mean, are you waiting for tenants to, or is the property manager really waiting for the tenant to turn over and you go in and flip the unit? Or is it something like, we got to replace all the electrical because it's got aluminum feeders in it, and you're going in and saying, sorry, we got to poke holes in your walls and do all this because it's a fire hazard?
Both.
Okay.
It goes both ways. So whenever possible, complexes will wait until a property turns over to do extensive work. But at the end of the day, the reality is there's people who will live in the same unit for years and years and years and years and years, right? And at some point, those people, their appliances need to be changed. They need a new front door. It needs to be painted. They need new countertops and stuff, just like everyone else. And so you're going to see a little bit of both there. And sometimes in a complex, we'll do a major overhaul where they're like, hey, you guys are going to go and you're going to replace the millwork in every unit that we have, and we're going to phase it out in this way and yada, yada, right? And being able to phase it and coordinate between tenants and property owners and whatnot, that part of that is what really sets apart good multifamily contractors from bad ones. You have to show up with a game plan, and you have to be managing all concerned parties to make sure that everyone's in a line. So that, as usual in any service-based business, communication is the key.
Yeah. What's the messiest thing or project? I think you told me about whenever the sprinklers broke and mold remediation.
Yeah, there was a lot of mold. I'm not going to speak to one of those properties on the podcast until I find out whether or not we'll ever be working with them again in the future. But there was a property that had some. This one wasn't from the sprinklers bursting. This one was a issue with the exterior envelope of the building. It was done really poorly. It was a stucco building with ephes for all of the kind of like trim pieces around it. And the transition from the stucco to the ephes was done very poorly, and it was not waterproofed. And so on the entire building, at every opening, there was water seeping in, like at the windows. And a family went on vacation, and one day they came home and there were little fuzzy spheres floating around the apartment, and this dude goes and looks at his Sperry boat shoes, and they look like a stuffed animal just covered in fur. Yeah, that bad. It was very bad, man. And they actually had a child under 1 year old living in that apartment, which really bothered me. And so I did an assessment, hired an environmentalist to test the microbes and everything. And it came back aggressive. It was the worst apartment I'd ever seen. That hands down the worst, to the extent that we were like, with everything we've discovered, it looks like it's traveling up the wall. And the property manager came in and was like, yeah, we're not going to do any poking around those other apartments, and we need you guys just to stay quiet about it. What do we need to do bare minimum to fix this one so it can be occupied again? And we were like, bare minimum, you have to tear out every piece of sheetrock in here, tear up the entire floor, all the insulation, and we need to treat it, get the moisture out, and then we need to treat it and prime it, and then put everything back. So that is the worst one I've ever seen.
It sounds pretty terrible. I don't think people realize generally how much mold is usually in properties, specifically bathrooms.
Oh, for sure.
If your roof becomes damaged, how just a little bit of water just creeping in over time can cause just a behemoth of problems.
Absolutely. And matter of fact, I don't ever want to work with those people again. So as far as the property manager goes. So yeah, it's a pretty ugly one.
Do we need another countertop estimate for projects that are up and coming? I just got a random text message from somebody.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry to throw the conversation. What else about multifamily that we can chat about, or that I can pick your brain on?
So multifamily, one of the biggest things that we offer as far as needs go, and there's tons of companies that do this kind of stuff, but like being a company that is flexible, like properties and property managers, companies like B&H, Billingsley, BM, gosh, I'm just blanking out. There's a couple of like really, really big ones that are all around Dallas. Like Amley is one. Anyways, point is there's a ton of them, right? So nonetheless, what they need is they need good partners, right? And any contractor can come out and do whatever their normal scope of work is, but a multifamily company needs someone who, upon short notice, can have someone on site doing emergency work like within the hour. They're going to need someone that if a tenant's home gets broken into, they need someone who can show up, take pictures of the door, work with the police to get that sorted out. And the second the police give you the thumbs up, rip that door out and replace it.
Yeah.
They're also going to need people who can inspect the exterior envelope, give a fair value estimate of what it's going to take to replace it and get up there and do that. And at the same time, do it with the roof, and at the same time be doing 6 make-readies. And they know that not every contractor can do that volume. So what they wind up doing is they end up partnering with anywhere from 6 to 10 contractors at a time. And you might see someone like renovation experts there doing larger projects, and those are the people that are doing exterior renovations, or the size of company that's saying, okay, we need to go and replace the can lights in every unit of this 500 door property, so they're going to manage the bigger jobs like that. And then you have someone like Apartments 360 who does nothing but make ready and appliance repair, so they need people on both ends of that spectrum. People that I've seen be really successful breaking into the multifamily market are people that are able to kind of hit both ends of that and create value for themselves by being a one-stop shop whose response time is unmatchable. And there's a lot of sacrifice that comes with that, but it works, man.
You see that most of those companies, they pick one sort of niche and just go straight vertical with it instead of saying
no. The most successful companies are ones that build a lasting relationship with a property manager and do whatever the property manager says. DFW is the home to more property managers and more multifamily contractors than anywhere else in the United States. And the companies that are based here stick together and they travel everywhere together. Okay. So there's a company that most of the properties they're working on are in North and South Carolina, and they have teams that are just traveling all the time. But the company's based out of Dallas. No, now you're back.
Huh?
You were silent there for a second, but now you're back.
Oh, I was going to ask, what's the North and South Carolina? Is that something that is just more specific to you because you spend a lot of time in that part of the country, or is that just there's a hub there that's just there's so much?
No, I just met that. I met the owner of a company who had partnered with a property manager where the property manager just happened to own a ton of complexes that way. Gotcha. Similarly, like one of my buddies right now is in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and he's going to be there for forever. It seems like he's already been there for forever, but he spent time before that in Mississippi and before that in Houston. And it's just because the property managers he's partnered with look at him and say, hey, we just bought 4 new properties in XYZ place. We need you to go there and make things happen. And so he drops everything and goes.
Cool.
Yeah. But that's different. Billing structure is different. Billing structure is very different because it has less to do with completed scope and more to do with turnover. Mm-hmm. If you're working in occupied spaces, nothing you do in that space really matters until it's turned over completely. Because especially if you're doing work, like I've done remodeling work where tenants have had to relocate and go to different units on the same property to accommodate the work. And that means that their vacant units are no longer available to renters. And the units that are vacant, you're now working in. So the faster you make that property available to them, the greater reward typically. But until you hand it, until you look at them and say, here's the keys, we're done with it. They're not going to pay you a dime. Unless there's, the only exception to that I've seen is when we had that winter storm in 2021. That was very different because it was disaster everywhere, and it was we were working in every single unit on every single property. So that was a different circumstance altogether. So of course rules were broken.
Yeah. Well, that sent Texas and much of the South into a tailspin.
Definitely.
Because homes are just not designed for that.
Well, no, of course not. Of course not. There's some things we could do better, but no, as far as multifamily work goes, it's about being able to build a relationship with someone and demonstrate value to them. And to understand and to demonstrate value, you need to be able to understand what it is that they need, you know? So it's very, very, very service oriented.
Yeah.
You're not going to run into like super high end craftsmanship, right? Because that gets sacrificed for really high quality service. So yeah, multifamily work is good.
Trying to think, is there anything else? Nothing comes to the top of my mind as far as multifamily goes.
No, and just general property maintenance, like repairing parking lots, site concrete. That's a big one. Doing upgrades like going around and fixing waterproofing, repairing balconies, painting fences, or painting doors, just all kinds of stuff. It's just you end up doing all kinds of things, man. You're almost like you might be working on big properties doing millions and millions of dollars of work and never do any real structural stuff. You're just doing repairs and maintenance. So yeah, being able to build that relationship and partner with someone really counts.
I mean, from their standpoint, it probably is beneficial to have somebody that you can call and they're there and reliable and do the job and get done and get out. And so with any service, if you're calling somebody and they're not there or they don't pick up the phone, there's nothing worse than a screaming client.
Oh, definitely. 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 I have to say that we as in Rooster, I think are a company that's in a sweet spot where we are able to help property managers very well. We have a ton of guys that work for us and work with us, and we have a wide array of industry knowledge. We are a company that does remodels, big and small. We'll do a shower remodel. We'll do a bathroom remodel. We'll install glass. We'll do whatever as far as that stuff's concerned. If you need your house painted, we'll paint it. If you need the siding torn off and put back up, we'll do that. If you need to frame a new addition, we'll do that. Anything that falls in the remodel category is within our scope. So as far as partnering with multifamily guys, it's like we've got all of that available to us already. Also, we're not so big of a company that we are turning down the service-based jobs. That's kind of the point I was trying to make by saying we do remodels of all sizes, is like, if you're dealing with reconstruction experts, and if anyone from RE happens to listen to this YouTube video, correct me if I'm wrong, but I doubt any of you are listening to this. So Maybe what I'm saying is true. Maybe it's not. Who knows? But no, RE is a big enough company that they're not going to piddle around with changing the front door on a unit that was just broken into.
Yeah.
If you have a bathtub where the the bathtub was set in has dried out and it's slipping and sliding and you have water issues, RE is not going to have someone there that afternoon changing out that bathtub so that you have a client in your space that is able to stay there, right? Because if they can't bathe there, it's not an occupiable space.
Yeah.
If there's sanitation issues, it's not occupiable, and the complex is obligated to either pay for a hotel or move them to another unit. So again, that speed is super important. So we are big enough that we have the resources you need to do your bigger projects, but we are also small enough that we're not going to say no to a $1,000 or $2,000 job.
Yeah.
So we're ideal in that sense.
Or that happy medium.
Yes. Yeah. It's that sweet spot. It's that sweet spot.
Well, sweet.
Yeah. Outside of that, I don't think there's, I don't know. We can do some deep dives on multifamily work.
I've got a buddy that we might be able to bring on and talk about multifamily and his experience with flipping. We could also bring on multifamily brokers. We've got a ton of experience about that now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, definitely.
They probably shoot the shit more than anything, but talk a little business as well. So,
hell yeah, definitely. Definitely. And as far as we are concerned, like, Rooster General Contractors and stuff, like, not only as a GC will we remodel multifamily and do service projects for multifamily, but we have a subsidiary that really does nothing but they do like frame to finish. So like framing, drywall, paint, that, trim, carpentry, siding, that kind of thing. So even if you are one of those really big companies like HIT or MW Builders or RE or whatever that's doing those really big projects, we're a good partner to have because it's all scope we can do. We're familiar with multifamily and the process and stuff. So it's really just an all around good fit for us.
right.
Not that this entire episode is an advertisement or
It pretty much is.
But no, honestly, I really love, and this is maybe just, some weird thing in me that ticks, but like, there's something that's really fun about going into a breezeway of a multifamily complex and drywalling a long tunnel, and then being able to go through and tape it and paint it and get it all the way there. There's something that's very fun about having that wide open space to just run with it and see how many boards can we hang in a day with no one in our way, just a long hallway of standing up full sheets. How many can I actually do in a day?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's fun.
Is it so whenever you're looking at like a framed out structure, do you look at those hallways like, oh yeah, this is butter, versus something that's more intricate, like a hallway that loops around, or something that has a lot of corners in it that's causing you to slow down, cut, measure more so than just like turn on that go mode and just lay out that long ass wall and drive.
Oh yeah. There's a rhythm to it. So I think that's part of what I love about drywall and painting personally, is there's a rhythm to it with drywall. when you're hanging full sheets and there's really not a lot of cutouts involved except maybe a few outlets, maybe you have to cut around a few door openings, right? But when you're just running in and you're hanging full sheets with minimum cutouts, you fly. It's very physically demanding. It's a great workout, and you kind of get to separate mind from body and get into a workflow. So your mind is free to wander and think about whatever you want while your body is just being, put through the ringer. But then once you've hung all the full sheets, well, now you have to top out. Now you have to get into more of those details and stuff, and that's a slower day. It's less physically demanding, but it occupies your thought. And so while one end is working hard, the other end is resting. Same thing when you get into tape in bed and whatnot. That first day that you are taping and you're just taping all of the verticals, that's a production day. You're running through, you're exhausted, you're doing speed work. By the time you're taping corners and you are doing your skim coats and stuff, there's a lot more detail. You've got to put lights on the wall so you can see what you're working with and pay attention to the details. Those first 2 coats I'm throwing up there, that's just production work.
Yeah.
Same thing with paint. There's a lot of slow, detailed work when you're masking and when you're prepping. But as soon as you've done all of that and all you're doing is running a spray gun, how fast you can work is how long you can last in a suit and mask before you need to take it off and breathe for a little bit. So I love that work. There's a rhythm, there's a process. You get the best of both worlds. It's kind of like lifting weights. You do like a heavy day where all you're doing is like low reps, super heavy lifting, that kind of thing. And then you'll go through and you'll do like some lightweight hypertrophy work where you're like doing really high reps, lower sets, that kind of deal. I feel like you get both ends of that,
Yeah.
So yeah, when I see that, I like it.
Cool. I think
we've exhausted this conversation. I think we're not even talking about multifamily.
No, we're not. But that's anymore. Fine. That's I think it's
be fun to do on an episode and to do it as a we can film it and then we can edit it so it doesn't last forever. But maybe what we could do is we could actually go walk a property and talk about like, here are some of the things you need to be looking out for from a property maintenance perspective. Here's the risk if you don't fix it, that kind of deal. Talk and just kind of have a conversation piece. Maybe we could do that with some of our friends in their properties just to give people an idea of what they're looking at.
It would be an interesting way of going about and splicing 2 episodes together, talking to our different friends that do own properties and manage them, where they came in, what they changed, what they were looking for, and go from there. Okay.
Definitely.
Sweet. All right. Well, this is the end of the podcast.
All right.
Booster General Contractors.
Bye.
Booster out.